The alarm bells rang through the space station like thunder. Commander Jake Morrison looked up from his coffee cup as red lights flashed across the control room. He had been drinking the same bitter coffee for 3 years aboard the UES Columbia, but today something felt different. "Sir, we have multiple contacts approaching from beyond Pluto," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, her fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "They're not moving like asteroids or comets. These things are under power." Jake set down his cup and walked to the main screen. 47 dots of light moved in perfect formation toward Earth. Each one was the size of a city block, and they were coming fast. "How long until they reach us?" Jake asked. "At their current speed, about 6 hours," Amy replied. "Sir, I've never seen anything like this. The energy readings are off the charts. 300 light-years away in a space station the size of a small moon, beings from across the galaxy gathered in panic. The Galactic Council had not met in emergency session for over 200 years. Now, representatives from 47 different worlds crowded into the crystal chamber. At the center of the room floated Zixthera, an ancient creature made of what looked like living light. Its body pulsed with worried energy as it spoke to the assembled aliens. "The humans have been contacted," Zixthera said, its voice reaching every mind in the room without sound. "Our diplomatic team approaches their system as we speak." A creature that looked like a walking tree raised one of its branch arms. "Why do we treat these humans as special? They have barely left their own planet. Their technology is primitive." "Because," Zixthera replied, "they are dangerous in ways you cannot imagine." In the back of the chamber, General Clickstar clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his people. The Veltar looked like giant insects covered in black armor. They had conquered 12 star systems in the last century, and their military was feared across the galaxy. An entire council session for a species that still uses chemical rockets. Clickstar's voice buzzed with amusement. "My scouts report they have fewer than 50 ships capable of leaving their solar system. We have destroyed civilizations with 10 times their strength." The other council members shifted uncomfortably. The Veltar Empire was known for its brutal efficiency. When they wanted a world, they took it. When species resisted, they were wiped out completely. "You do not understand," Zixthera said, its form growing brighter with concern. "We have studied humanity for centuries. They're not like other species. They adapt. They survive. They find ways to win when winning should be impossible." "Stories and legends," Clickstar replied. "I deal in facts. The facts say humans are weak." Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the war room buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Banks of computers lined the walls, and dozens of technicians monitored every piece of data coming from space. Lisa had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, even though she had never really believed it would come. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," announced Dr. Emma Sullivan, the lead xenobiologist on the first contact team. "It's coming through on multiple frequencies, including some we didn't even know existed." "Put it through," Lisa ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that should not exist. The being on the screen was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It looked like a person made of starlight, with features that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "People of Earth," the being said in perfect English, "we are the Galactic Council. Come in peace to welcome you to the community of star-traveling civilizations." Lisa felt her heart racing. After decades of searching for signs of alien life, here they were, talking directly to Earth. "We offer you friendship, trade, and knowledge," the being continued. "But we must also give you a warning. There are those in our galaxy who see young civilizations as threats to be eliminated. We'll do what we can to protect you, but you must be careful." The transmission ended, leaving the war room in complete silence. "Ma'am," Dr. Sullivan said quietly, "what do we do now?" Before Lisa could answer, another alarm sounded. This one was different, urgent, and sharp. "Admiral, we have new contacts." Amy Foster's voice came through the communication system from the Columbia. "These ships are different from the first group. They're larger, and they're armed." Lisa felt her blood turn cold. "How many?" "Over 200 ships, ma'am." They're broadcasting a message. Let's hear it. The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and alien, like the sound of grinding metal. Humans of Earth, I am General Clickstar of the Veltar Empire. You will surrender your world immediately or face complete destruction. You have one of your days to decide. The transmission cut off, leaving the war room in stunned silence. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, Zixthura's form had turned a deep red color. The Veltar have moved against the humans. This is exactly what we feared would happen. Perhaps it is for the best, said a reptilian creature with golden scales. If the humans are as dangerous as you claim, better they are dealt with now. You fools, Zixthura replied, its voice heavy with sadness. You have no idea what you have done. The humans will not simply surrender, they will fight. And when humans fight, they do not fight like the rest of us. General Clickstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. The viewing ports, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. It looked so peaceful, so defenseless. General, his aide buzzed. Our scouts report the humans are moving their ships into defensive positions. They seem to be preparing for battle. Excellent, Clickstar replied. It has been too long since we had a proper fight. Signal the fleet. We attack in 12 hours. On Earth, President Helen Carter addressed the planet from the White House. Billions of people watched as she spoke calmly about humanity's first contact with alien life and the threat they now faced. My fellow humans, she said, we stand at a crossroads. We can surrender and hope for mercy, or we can fight for our freedom and our future. I know what choice America will make. I know what choice humanity will make. In space, Commander Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet moving closer to Earth, his ship. The Columbia was one of only 12 vessels standing between the invaders and his homeworld. The odds were impossible, but Jake had studied enough human history to know that impossible odds had never stopped his species before. Sir, Lieutenant Foster said, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Carter. Lisa Carter's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, but determined. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered and outgunned, but we're human. We faced extinction before, and we're still here. Today we show the galaxy why. Jake smiled grimly. You heard the Admiral? Or all hands. To battle stations. Let's show these aliens what humans are made of. As the two fleets moved toward each other, neither side fully understood what was about to happen. The Veltar expected an easy victory over a primitive species. The humans expected to fight and die defending their world. Neither side expected. What would actually occur when humanity was pushed to the very edge of extinction? The galaxy was about to learn why ancient civilizations had left warnings about, provoking the small blue world orbiting an ordinary yellow star. The warnings had been ignored. Now everyone would pay the price. The first shots of the war came at dawn, Earth's time. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching as streaks of green light raced across the darkness of space. The Veltar plasma weapons lit up the void like deadly fireworks. Incoming. Plasma bolts, shouted Lieutenant Amy Foster from her position at the weapons console. Multiple contacts closing fast. Ryan gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shook under the impact. The Defiant's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the alien energy, but the power readings were dropping fast. Turn fire, Ryan ordered. All railguns, target the lead cruiser. The human ship's magnetic cannons fired metal slugs at incredible speed. The projectiles struck the Veltar vessel's shields, creating ripples of energy across its hull. But the alien shields held firm, barely showing damage from the impact. Sir, our weapons are having minimal effect, reported Lieutenant Foster. Their shields are absorbing most of the kinetic energy. Near Jupiter's largest moon, the destroyer Hughes Ranger exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Captain Sarah Wells had commanded that ship for 8 years. Now she and her crew of 200 were gone in an instant, vaporized by a direct hit from a Veltar battlecruiser. Ranger is down, came the report from the communications officer. No survivors detected. Ryan felt anger burning in his chest. The Veltar had killed his friends, his fellow humans, without even trying to accept surrender. They wanted to wipe out humanity completely. All ships. This is defiant actual, Ryan broadcast to the human fleet. Fall back to Mars orbit. We need to regroup and figure out how to hurt these things. The retreat was costly. 3 more human ships were destroyed as they tried to escape the Veltar weapons. The aliens pursued them like wolves chasing wounded deer, their plasma cannons cutting through space with deadly precision. Chief Engineer? Ben Hayes worked frantically in the Defiant's engine room as the ship raced toward Mars. Pieces of a destroyed Veltar scout ship had been pulled into the cargo bay during the battle. Ben was trying to understand how the alien technology worked. The power source is incredible, Ben muttered to himself as he studied the wreckage. They're using some kind of controlled fusion reaction, but it's completely different from our designs. The alien weapon system was partially intact. Ben carefully removed the power coupling and studied its design. The technology was advanced, but not impossible to understand. Humans had always been good at taking things apart and figuring out how they worked. Captain, Ben called over the intercom, I think I can adapt one of their weapons to our power grid. It might give us an edge in the next fight. Ryan's voice came back immediately. How long do you need? Give me 6 hours, sir. Maybe less if I get lucky. While Ben worked on the alien technology, General Clickstar stood on his flagship reviewing the battle reports. The engagement had gone exactly as he expected. Human weapons were primitive and ineffective against Veltar shields. Their ships were slow and clumsy compared to his sleek cruisers. The humans lost 5 ships, his aide reported. We lost only 1 scout vessel to a collision with debris. Acceptable losses, Clickstar replied. How long until our reinforcements arrive? The second wave will be here in 18 hours, General. Another 100 ships? Clickstar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. The humans had shown more courage than most species, but courage meant nothing against superior firepower. Soon Earth would be under Veltar control, and humanity would be another conquered race. But something was bothering him. The humans had retreated in good order, not in panic, while species broke and ran when they faced Veltar weapons for the first time. The humans had pulled back strategically, saving as many ships as possible. On Mars, Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the emergency command center that had been built inside the planet's largest mining facility. The room was filled with officers from every human ship that had survived the first battle. We need to face facts, Lisa said to the assembled commanders. Their technology is better than ours. Their shields stop our weapons, and their plasma cannons can destroy our ships with 1 hit. So what do we do? Asked Captain Jane Miller from the destroyer, Use Vengeance. We can't just give up and let them destroy Earth. We adapt, Lisa replied. It's what humans do best. We learn from our mistakes and find new ways to fight. Dr. Emma Sullivan stepped forward. She had been studying the sensor data from the battle, looking for weaknesses in the Veltar ships. I found something interesting, Emma said. Their shields are incredibly strong against kinetic weapons and energy weapons, but they seem to have a rotation frequency. For about 2 seconds every minute, there's a gap in their defensive coverage. 2 seconds isn't much time, Captain Miller pointed out. It's enough, Admiral Carter replied. We just need to coordinate our attacks better. Back on the Defiant, Ben Hayes had made a breakthrough. The alien weapon system was now connected to the ship's power grid, and the fusion reactor was providing enough energy to run both human and Veltar systems simultaneously. Captain, you need to see this, Ben called. Ryan hurried down to the engineering section. Ben was standing next to a control panel that looked like it had been built by aliens and humans working together. Cables and wires connected human computers to Veltar technology in a mess that somehow worked. I've integrated their plasma cannon with our targeting system, Ben explained. But here's the interesting part. Their weapon doesn't just fire plasma. It creates a focused beam that can disrupt energy shields from the inside. You mean we can punch through their defenses? Better than that, sir? We can turn their own technology against them? The test firing took place in the asteroid belt. Far from any inhabited worlds, Defiant's new weapon system locked onto a large asteroid and fired. The plasma beam struck the rock and turned it into a cloud of superheated gas in seconds. Incredible, Ryan whispered. And you might have just given us a chance to win this war. The news spread quickly through the human fleet. Other ships began examining their own salvaged alien technology, trying to replicate Ben's success. Human engineers worked alongside xenobiologists and physicists, combining their knowledge to understand the Veltar systems. Colonel Sandra Price led a team of specialists who had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Her team included the best minds from Earth's universities and research centers. The Veltar aren't just using advanced technology, Sandra reported to Admiral Carter. They're using it inefficiently. Their power systems are incredibly wasteful, and their weapon targeting is slow and predictable. What does that mean for us? Lisa asked. This means they've been winning through overwhelming force, not through smart tactics. They're used to enemies who can't match their firepower. But if we can level the playing field technologically, we might be able to outfight them. The Galactic Council watched the developing conflict with growing alarm. Zixthera floated in the center of the crystal chamber, its form flickering between different colors as it processed the incoming reports. The humans are adapting to Veltar technology, it announced to the assembled representatives. They have successfully integrated alien weapons into their own ships. Impossible, buzzed a Dinsec-like creature from the Hive Collective. No species has ever reverse-engineered Veltar technology so quickly. The humans are not like other species, Zixthera replied. They do not follow the patterns we expect. They learn from every battle, every defeat, every small victory. Surely the Veltar will crush them before they can cause real damage, said the golden-scaled reptilian. The Empire has resources the humans cannot match. Zixthera's form turned a deep purple color, which indicated extreme concern among its people. You still do not understand. The humans are not trying to match Veltar resources. They're trying to make those resources irrelevant. Dr. Marcus Webb, humanity's leading physicist, made his breakthrough in a laboratory on Luna. He had been working on theoretical weapons based on quantum mechanics, and the arrival of the Veltar had given his research new urgency. Lisa, you need to see this, Marcus said over the secure communication link to Mars. I think I've found a way to ignore their shields completely. Explain, Admiral Carter replied. Quantum entanglement, Marcus said. If we can create quantum entangled particles and place them inside Veltar ships, we can detonate weapons directly inside their hulls. No shields, no armor, no defense. How long to build a working prototype? Give me 2 weeks and all the resources I need. The second battle was different from the first. When the Veltar reinforcements arrived, they found human ships that could fight back. The plasma weapons Ben Hayes had developed were tearing through alien shields, and human tactics had become more sophisticated. Captain Ryan Brooks led the charge in the Defiant, his ship's new weapons cutting through the Veltar formation like a knife through paper. The aliens were no longer fighting helpless prey. They were fighting an enemy that could hurt them back. Target their command ship, Ryan ordered. Let's see how they like being on the receiving end. The battle raged for hours. Ships from both sides were destroyed, but for the first time, the humans were taking more alien vessels than they lost. The Veltar were learning what every other species in the galaxy had known for centuries. Never underestimate humanity's ability to adapt and survive. 6 months had passed since the first alien ships arrived at Earth. The war had spread across the solar system, and humanity was no longer the weak species that General Clickstar had expected to crush. Easily President Helen Carter stood before the combined leaders of every nation on Earth. The old divisions between countries had disappeared overnight. When faced with extinction, Russians worked alongside Americans, Chinese scientists shared research with Europeans, and African engineers collaborated with teams from every continent. My fellow humans, President Carter said, we face a choice that will define our species. Forever, we can continue fighting defensively, hoping to survive long enough for the aliens to get tired and go away. Or we can take this war to them and show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. The vote was unanimous. Humanity chose war. Dr. Marcus Webb's quantum weapons had been tested successfully on Luna 3 weeks earlier. The results were spectacular and terrifying. A small device no larger than a baseball had completely destroyed an abandoned space station by detonating inside its hull, bypassing all armor and shields. The implications are staggering, Marcus explained to Admiral Lisa Carter and her staff. These weapons don't travel through space like normal projectiles. They appear instantly inside the target through quantum tunneling. No defense can stop them. How many can we build? Lisa asked. The current production facilities, maybe 50 per week? But if we convert the lunar factories and the asteroid mining operations, we could produce thousands. Do it, Lisa ordered. Convert everything. I want every human ship armed with quantum torpedoes within a month. The first major test came during the Battle of the Outer Rim. Admiral Tony Martinez commanded a fleet of 30 human vessels against a Veltar armada of 80 ships. The aliens expected another grinding battle like the previous engagements. Instead, they got something completely new. All ships prepare quantum torpedoes, Admiral Martinez broadcast. Target the largest enemy vessels first. Fire on my command. The quantum weapons didn't produce the brilliant light shows of plasma cannons or railguns. They simply made enemy ships disappear. One moment a Veltar cruiser was advancing toward the human fleet. The next moment it was expanding cloud of debris and superheated gas. What just happened? Demanded General Clickstar from his flagship. How did they destroy the cutting edge so quickly? His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with confusion. Sir, I'm not detecting any incoming weapons. The humans fired something, but our sensors can't track it. Impossible. All weapons can be detected and intercepted. Not these, sir. Whatever they're using, it's completely invisible to our defense systems. In the space of 20 minutes, the human fleet destroyed 43 Veltar ships without losing a single vessel. Now the remaining alien forces retreated in complete disorder, broadcasting panicked reports about human superweapons that could not be stopped. But the real breakthrough came when Major Kate Williams led the first human boarding action against a Veltar dreadnought. Her team of 50 Marines used small quantum charges to create holes in the enemy hull, then entered the ship while it was still under power. Remember, Kate told her team as they prepared to board, we're not just here to capture this ship. We're here to learn everything we can about how they fight and how they think. The boarding action was brutal but brief. The Veltar were powerful in their armor, but they had never faced human close combat tactics. The Marines used explosive charges, combat knives, and even their bare hands to fight through the ship's corridors. They're not built for hand-to-hand fighting, Kate reported as her team secured the bridge. Their armor is strong, but it makes them slow. They can't adapt to rapid changes in combat situations. More importantly, the captured ship gave humanity access to complete Veltar computer systems. Within hours, human hackers and cryptographers were reading alien military communications and tactical databases. This is incredible, said Dr. Emma Sullivan as she studied the captured data. We now know the location of every Veltar military base, every supply route, every weakness in their defenses. But the humans weren't finished adapting. Dr. Laura Davis, a microbiologist from the Centers for Disease Control, had been studying captured Veltar prisoners. What she discovered would change the war completely. Their biology is fascinating, Laura explained to a meeting of military commanders. They're insect-based, but they rely on a very specific type of bacteria in their digestive systems. Without these bacteria, they can't process food, and they die within days. Are you suggesting biological warfare? Admiral Carter asked. I'm suggesting we give them a choice, Laura replied. Surrender, or watch their entire species starve to death. The weapon was elegant in its simplicity. Human ships began releasing clouds of specially designed viruses into space near Veltar fleets. The viruses were harmless to every known species, except the Veltar, but they were deadly to the bacteria the aliens needed to survive. Sir, we have a problem, reported Clickstar's medical officer. The crews on 17 ships are reporting severe illness. They can't keep food down and they're getting weaker by the hour. What's causing it? Clickstar demanded. We don't know. Sir, it's not like any disease we've encountered before. It's as if something is attacking the symbiotic organisms in our digestive systems. The biological warfare was just the beginning. Commander Steve Roberts, a former Navy SEAL who had been placed in charge of special operations, developed tactics that used the Veltar's own technology against them. They rely heavily on networked communications. Steve explained to his team, every ship in their fleet is connected to every other ship through quantum communication links. If we can hack into those links, we can spread confusion and false orders throughout their entire command structure. The operation was carried out during the Battle of Europa. While human ships engaged the Veltar fleet directly, Steve's team used captured alien communication equipment to insert false data into the enemy network. Tell the 3rd Squadron to retreat immediately. One false order read. Human reinforcements are approaching from the asteroid belt. All ships target the flagship. Read another. General Clickstar has been replaced by Admiral Zethkal. Within an hour, the Veltar fleet was in complete chaos. Ships were firing on each other, retreating in different directions, and demanding confirmation of orders that had never been given. The human fleet destroyed 30 enemy vessels, while the aliens were too confused to fight back effectively. General Clickstar watched his carefully organized military machine fall apart around him. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing in Veltar space, using quantum weapons to destroy supply convoys and military installations. Entire colonies were reporting mysterious illnesses that killed millions of his people. How is this possible? He demanded. 6 months ago, they couldn't even hurt our shields. Now they're winning battles across 12 star systems. Sir, his intelligence officer buzzed nervously. The humans are not fighting like any species we've encountered before. They don't follow standard military doctrine. Every engagement reveals new tactics and new weapons. They're just one species, Clickstar replied. We've conquered dozens of civilizations. Yes, sir, but those civilizations fought the way we expected them to fight. The humans seem to invent new ways to kill us every few days. The truth was even worse than Clickstar knew. Humanity had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had turned a defensive war into an offensive campaign while simultaneously developing completely new technologies and tactics. Captain Julia Barnes, commanding the new flagship U.S. Retribution, led a strike force deep into Veltar territory. Her mission was not just to destroy enemy ships, but to capture Veltar planets and hold them. Remember, Julia told her fleet commanders, we're not just fighting a war anymore. We're reshaping the balance of power in this galaxy. Every world we take as one less base the Veltar can use against us. The assault on the Veltar colony world Kethmer was humanity's first attempt at planetary conquest. The attack began with quantum torpedoes destroying the orbital defense platforms, followed by a ground invasion using the same brutal tactics that had worked so well in ship-to-ship combat, but the humans did something unexpected. Instead of simply conquering the planet, they began changing it. Dr. Alan Cooper, leading the terraforming effort, deployed atmospheric processors that began converting the planet's methane-rich air to oxygen. Gravity generators altered the world's fundamental physics, making it more suitable for human habitation. What are they doing to our world? Demanded the Veltar colonial governor, as he watched human machines reshape his planet's environment. They're making it into a human world, replied the human occupation commander. You have 72 hours to evacuate all civilians to the transport ships we've provided. After that, this planet belongs to humanity. The psychological impact was devastating. The Veltar had always conquered other species by destroying their resistance and enslaving the survivors. The humans were doing something far worse. They were erasing Veltar civilization completely, replacing it with human colonies, sir, Clickstar S8 reported. We're receiving surrender requests from 14 different star systems. The message came through on every communication channel in the galaxy. President Helen Carter's face appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds, her voice calm and steady as she spoke words that would be remembered for centuries. To all civilizations watching this conflict, she said, humanity did not start this war. We offered friendship to the galaxy and were met with threats of extinction. What happens next is the choice of those who chose to ignore the warnings they were given. General Clickstar received the message on his flagship as it limped away from the ruins of another defeated fleet. 30 ships had entered the battle at Kepler Station, only 7 had escaped, and his own vessel was barely holding together. His communications officer buzzed weakly. The humans are broadcasting surrender terms. Let me hear them, Clickstar replied. The human terms were simple and terrifying. Complete unconditional surrender of all Veltar military forces. Evacuation of all Veltar colonies to designated reservation worlds. Full access to all Veltar technology and databases. An oversight of Veltar civilization by human administrators for the next 100 years. They want to destroy us completely, whispered his aide. No, Clickstar replied, studying the terms more carefully. They want to control us completely. There's a difference. President Carter authorized Operation Nightfall 3 days later. The largest military operation in human history would strike every remaining Veltar world simultaneously. Admiral Lisa? Carter commanded the operation from her new flagship, the UES Vengeance, a vessel built entirely with hybrid human Veltar technology. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Carter. She broadcast to the 1,000 human ships spread across the galaxy. Operation Nightfall begins in exactly 1 hour. Remember, we're not just fighting for victory anymore. We're fighting to ensure that no species ever threatens humanity again. Captain Julia Barnes led the assault on the Veltar homeworld of Velkith. Prime, the planet was the heart of their civilization. Home to over 12 billion aliens and protected by the strongest defenses in their empire. Ma'am, reported Lieutenant Commander Ashley Bell from her position at the tactical console. The orbital defense grid is powering up. We're detecting over 300 weapon platforms. Are our quantum torpedoes ready? Julia asked. All tubes? Loaded and targeted, ma'am. Fire everything. The defense platforms died in seconds. Quantum weapons materialized inside their hulls and tore them apart from within. The Veltar had spent centuries building those defenses, and humanity destroyed them in less than 5 minutes. But the real shock came when the human fleet began its approach to the planet itself. Instead of the orbital bombardment that every civilization expected, something entirely different happened. Deploying atmospheric processors, announced Dr. Alan Cooper from the science vessel U.S. Darwin, beginning Phase 1 of planetary conversion. Machines that descended from human ships looked like metal rain falling toward the planet's surface. Each processor was the size of a city block, and they began working the moment they touched down. What are those things doing? Demanded the Veltar planetary governor as he watched from his underground bunker. His science advisor studied the readings with growing horror. They're changing our atmosphere, sir, converting the methane to oxygen. If this continues, the air will become poisonous to us within days. How long do we have? Maybe a week before the atmosphere becomes completely unbreathable for our species. The humans wanted every Veltar on the planet to watch their world being transformed into something alien and hostile. Gravity generators began altering the planet's fundamental physics, making the environment lighter and more suitable for human physiology. This is Commander Rachel Green of the Human Occupation Force, came the broadcast from the orbiting fleet. All Veltar civilians have 72 hours to report to the designated evacuation points. Transport ships will carry you to new worlds where your species can survive. Anyone remaining after the deadline will be considered a hostile combatant. The psychological warfare was more effective than any weapon. Across the planet, Veltar families gathered their possessions and began the long journey to the evacuation sites. They were leaving behind everything there. Civilization had built over thousands of years. General Clickstar watched the destruction of his homeworld from space. His remaining fleet too damaged to intervene. Reports were coming in from across the Empire. Every major Veltar world was undergoing the same process. Humanity wasn't just conquering territory, they were erasing Veltar civilization and replacing it with human colonies. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from every remaining system. The colonial governors are requesting immediate evacuation rather than face terraforming." "How many worlds have we lost?" Clickstar asked. 43 systems. "In the last week, sir, the humans are moving faster than we can retreat." Dr. Laura Davis supervised the biological warfare campaign from a research station orbiting Mars. Her specially designed viruses had spread through Veltar space by their own supply ships and communication networks. "The infection rate is approaching 90%, she reported to President Carter. Veltar colonies across the galaxy are reporting mass starvation and system failures. Their entire species is becoming dependent on the antidotes we control." "Are we offering the treatments to civilians?" Carter asked. "Of course, ma'am. We're not monsters. Any Veltar who surrenders and agrees to relocation receives full medical treatment. We're only withholding the antidotes for military forces that continue to resist." Commander Steve Roberts had expanded his information warfare beyond simple hacking. His teams were now broadcasting human culture and history directly into Veltar communication networks, showing them exactly what happened to species that threatened humanity. "They're learning about our wars," Steve reported to Admiral Carter. "We're showing them footage from World War II, Vietnam, Afghanistan, every conflict where humans fought against impossible odds and won anyway." "What's their reaction?" "Terror. Ma'am, they're starting to understand that we don't fight like other species. We don't follow their rules about honorable combat or acceptable losses. When humans go to war, we go to war completely." The breaking point came when Captain Danny Clark led a strike force to the ocean world of Depsmer. The planet was home to the Veltar's main food production facilities, underwater farms that fed billions across their empire. "Begin ocean-draining operations," Danny ordered. The human fleet deployed massive pump ships that began extracting water from the planet's seas. Within hours, the ocean levels were dropping visibly. Fish died by the billions as their habitat disappeared. The underwater cities of the Veltar were exposed to air for the first time in their history. "They're destroying everything," whispered a Veltar scientist as he watched the oceans disappear. "Our entire food supply, our breeding grounds, our sacred sites, all of it is being wiped away." The operation took 72 hours. When it was finished, Depsmer was a dead world covered in salt flats and empty ocean basins.
Ow.
The planet that had fed the Veltar Empire for centuries was now uninhabitable. "This is what happens when you threaten human survival," Danny broadcast to the galaxy. "We don't just defeat our enemies, we make sure they can never threaten us again." General Clickstar finally accepted the inevitable. His empire was gone, his military was scattered, and his people were dying on worlds that no longer supported their biology. The humans had done something no civilization had ever accomplished. They had completely reversed the outcome of a war they had been losing. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. President Carter's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined, like someone who had made difficult decisions and was prepared to live with the consequences. "General Clickstar," she said simply, "I assume you're ready to discuss surrender." "I am," Clickstar replied. "But first, I want to understand something. Why didn't you just destroy us? You clearly have the power to wipe out our entire species." Carter was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her words were calm but filled with iron determination. "Because we're not like you," she said. "We don't destroy civilizations unless we have to. But we also don't forget threats to our survival. Your species chose to try to exterminate humanity. We're making sure that choice can never be made again." "What happens to my people?" "They live," Carter replied. "On worlds we choose, under conditions we set, with oversight we provide. Your military is disbanded permanently. Your right to your technology becomes human property. Your colonies become human territory. And your civilization becomes a reminder to every other species in the galaxy about what happens when you threaten humanity." Clickstar looked at the terms displayed on his screen. Complete surrender. Total occupation. End of everything. His people had built over 1,000 years. "I accept," he said quietly. The formal surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. General Clickstar, the most feared military commander in Veltar history, knelt before President Carter and handed over his ceremonial weapon. The gesture was simple, but every alien civilization watching understood its meaning. Humanity had one. It's not just a battle or a war, but complete dominance over a species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. 1 year after General Clickstar's surrender, the galaxy looked completely different. Where once the Veltar Empire had controlled 47 star systems, now human colonies spread across space like seeds on fertile ground. Director Paul Johnson stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Velkith, watching human ships come and go from what had once been the alien homeworld. The integration process is ahead of schedule, reported his assistant, Lieutenant Karen Lewis. The former Veltar populations have been relocated to the 7 designated reservation worlds. Most are adapting to their new circumstances better than expected. Paul nodded as he watched a transport ship departing for Earth, its cargo holds filled with alien technology and scientific data. They're practical creatures. They understand that cooperation means survival. The reservation worlds were not prisons, but they were not free societies either. The Veltar lived under constant human supervision, their technology limited to basic tools and communications. They could farm, build homes, and raise families, but they could never again build starships or weapons. Any resistance movements? Paul asked. 3 minor incidents last month, Karen replied. Some young Veltar tried to build a radio transmitter powerful enough to contact other systems. Our monitors detected it immediately and shut it down. Punishment reduced. Food rations for the entire settlement for 1 week. The community leaders handled the disciplinary action themselves after that. Paul smiled grimly. Collective punishment was effective because it turned the Veltar population against troublemakers within their own communities. It was cruel, but necessary to prevent organized resistance. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Galactic Council had requested an emergency meeting. The crystal chamber that had once hosted debates about human potential now served as a courtroom where humanity's actions were being questioned. The humans have violated every principle of civilized warfare, declared the golden-scaled reptilian representative. Their treatment of the Veltar goes far beyond necessary military action. Ambassador Ashley Bell sat calmly at the human delegation table, her uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's new Galactic Relations Department. At 28 years old, she was the youngest ambassador in Council history. But her words carried the weight of human military power. The Veltar Empire declared their intention to exterminate humanity, Ashley replied in a steady voice. They attacked our homeworld without provocation and attempted genocide. Our response was measured and appropriate. Appropriate? The reptilian gasped. You've enslaved an entire species. You've relocated a hostile population to worlds where they can live safely under supervision, Ashley corrected. They retain their families, their culture, and their lives. That's more mercy than they offered humanity. Zixthara floated in the center of the chamber, its ancient form pulsing with troubled energy. The concern is not just about the Veltar. It said, your species has demonstrated capabilities that threaten the entire galactic order. Your quantum weapons, your biological warfare, your terraforming technology. You've become too powerful, too quickly. Ashley stood up, her movement drawing the attention of every representative in the chamber. The galactic order failed to protect humanity when we needed protection. The council watched the Veltar prepare for genocide and did nothing. We protected ourselves because no one else would. What do you want from us? Asked the insect-like representative from the Hive Collective. Nothing. Ashley replied, we don't need your permission to exist, your approval of our actions, or your guidance on our policies. We're informing you of our decisions as a courtesy, not asking for your consent. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a junior member of galactic civilization seeking acceptance. They were the new dominant power, and they would act according to their own interests. On the aquatic world of Depth Sky, the local government made a critical mistake. They began raiding human shipping lanes, testing whether the new galactic power would respond to minor provocations. Captain Danny Clark received the order to respond from Admiral Carter herself. Drain their oceans, the order read. Complete. Operation within 72 hours. The depth sky had not learned from the Veltar's example. Their planet had vast oceans covering 90% of the surface, and their entire civilization lived underwater. They believed their environment would protect them from human retaliation. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived without warning. Massive pump ships descended into the deepest ocean trenches and began extracting water at an incredible rate. The depth sky sent their military to stop the operation, but quantum torpedoes destroyed their submarines before they could reach the human vessels. "This is Captain Danny Clark of the Human Navy," came the broadcast to the planet below. "You have attacked human shipping and killed human crews. Your oceans will be removed until your government surrenders unconditionally and pays reparations for the damage you've caused." The operation took exactly 72 hours. When it was finished, Depth Sky was a desert world dotted with empty ocean basins. Billions of aquatic aliens died as their habitat disappeared. The survivors huddled in artificial pools, completely dependent on human-provided water supplies. "Please," begged the Depth Sky Prime Minister as he broadcast his surrender. "We didn't understand. We thought you were like other species." "We were wrong, as you were," Danny replied. "The water will be returned when you've completed reparation payments and accepted permanent human oversight of your government. Till then, you'll receive enough water to survive, but nothing more."
Ow.
The galactic community watched in horror as another civilization learned the cost of provoking humanity. Now, the message was spreading through space faster than any ship could travel. Humans didn't fight wars. They ended civilizations. Dr. Susan Moore presented humanity's new doctrine to the Galactic Council 6 months later. The document was simple, direct, and terrifying in its implications. Humanity will no longer tolerate threats to human survival. She read to the assembled representatives. Any species that attacks human ships, human colonies, or human citizens will face immediate and total retaliation. Any species that supports such attacks will be considered hostile and treated accordingly.
What about the rights of other civilizations?"
demanded the tree-like representative from the forest worlds. "Other civilizations have the right to exist peacefully," Susan replied. "They have the right to trade, explore, and develop their cultures without interference. They do not have the right to threaten humanity." "And who decides what constitutes a threat?" asked Zixthera. "We do," Susan answered simply. The new reality was demonstrated when the Hive Collective attempted to form a military alliance against human expansion. Agent Chris Adams, head of Human Intelligence Services, had been monitoring their communications for months. "They're planning to coordinate attacks on our outer colonies," Chris reported to President Carter. 7 different species, including some council members? "Evidence?" Carter asked. "Complete communication logs, battle plans, and resource allocation documents. They're calling it Operation Swarm. Recommendations: simultaneous strikes on all 7 species, quantum weapons against their military installations, biological warfare against their food supplies, and occupation of their key worlds. Show the galaxy what happens when you conspire against humanity." The strikes began at exactly the same moment across the galaxy. 7 different civilizations found their military forces destroyed, their food production crippled, and their governments replaced by human administrators. The operation took less than a week to complete. "This is President Helen Carter," came the broadcast to every world in the galaxy. 7 species attempted to form a military alliance against humanity. They have been defeated and occupied. Populations will be relocated to appropriate worlds under human supervision. Let this serve as a final warning to any civilization considering hostile action against human interests. Zixthera made its final report to the cosmic entities that governed galactic law. The ancient being's form flickered between colors as it transmitted its message into the void beyond known space. "The humans have become the dominant force in this galaxy," it reported. "They do not seek to rule other species for profit or glory. They seek absolute security for their own survival. Any threat to humanity, real or imagined, results in the complete destruction of the threatening civilization. The warnings we gave about human nature were ignored by those who believed strength came only from technology and numbers. They discovered too late that humanity's greatest weapon is their absolute refusal to accept defeat or extinction. The galaxy now exists under human hegemony, not through conquest for territory or resources, but through the systematic elimination of any force that could threaten human survival. They have created peace through the promise of total destruction for anyone who breaks it. Lieutenant Commander Ashley Bell, now serving as humanity's primary ambassador to what remained of the Galactic Council, delivered the final statement that would define the new galactic order. "The universe told you never to provoke us," she said to the assembled representatives. "You chose to ignore that warning. But the Veltar paid the price. The Depth Sky paid the price.